Hello and welcome. In this tutorial, we will learn the various kinds of errors that we are likely to encounter as we program in Python and how to handle these errors. So as a Python programmer, there's no way you're going to run your code without encountering some errors. There's no magic to that. And in fact, encountering errors in your code is a day-to-day lifestyle of every programmer. And it is quite important to know this so that you don't freak out when you encounter these errors. And in this tutorial, we will get to know all the possible errors that you are likely to encounter as you code in Python and how to fix and debug these errors. So let's get started. Alright, so there are several types of errors that we're going to encounter as you program in Python. And as I said, there's no way you can run away from these errors. It's just going to be part of your lifestyle as a Python programmer. You're going to write a code, then you might forget some syntax, or you might write something that Python don't even understand, and you're going to run into some errors. And most often, when people enter into errors, they freak out when they see the red lines and the squeaky red lines underlying their code. They get freaked out, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you don't really know what to do. That becomes more daunting, right? But in this tutorial, we're going to see some of the common errors that you are likely to encounter and then how to fix these errors. All right, so that when you see them, you're not going to freak out. It's not going to scare you. Okay, if you understand the error, there's nothing to get scared about, especially if you know how to fix these errors. Okay, so there are several types of errors that we're going to see in Python, and these are the three main types of errors that we're going to encounter as we program in Python. Okay, that is syntax error, runtime error, and then logical errors. Okay, so we're going to see these different types of errors in today's tutorial. Okay, so let's get started. I've given you some of the common Python errors that you can encounter as you code in Python, right? So I've given you a list of in almost all of them over here and what they mean, right? So you have all of them over here and also their definition. Okay, and we're going to go through them, right? We're going to go through them in this tutorial. So let's start. Instead of probably me taking you through this one, let me start with an example and start showing you these errors, so that I'm going to write code and then run into these errors and then show you what these errors means and how we can fix them, right? Instead of maybe taking you through them, but you have all the errors here and what they mean over here. Okay, so let me start by taking you through these errors one by one. All right. So as I said, there are actually three main categories of Python errors that you're going to encounter. That is the syntax error, the runtime error, and then logical errors. Okay, so let's start with the syntax errors. Okay, so let's start with syntax errors. So when we talk about syntax errors, we're talking about a situation where you are writing a Python code, but you did not follow the proper structure or the proper syntax of writing code in Python, right? So in that case, Python will not understand that, and it's going to give you an error, right? So for instance, you can miss some colon, or you can make some bracket or some code, or maybe wrong spelling of some keywords, right? It can give you errors, right? So if you're writing a code and you don't follow the proper syntax in Python, you're going to run into what is called syntax error. Okay, so let's see an example of syntax error over here, right? So let's say I want to add two numbers, right? So I say let's say a equals 10, then I have b equals 20, right? And then I want to add these two numbers and store them in a variable called c. So I say a plus b. Okay, then I print my c. Okay, so let me run this code and see what happens. All right, now I see that I have 30. Everything works fine. So let's say we're writing this code and then we wrote something like a equals 10, which is very fine. We have b equals 20 over here. Then I want to add these two numbers. Okay, I want to add these two numbers. So I just want to do that. Then I print my c. Okay, so let's run this code. Oops, we are in error, right? We've run into an error. So let's see what went wrong over here. Let's see the error and then see what went wrong over here. So if you see, it's telling us that at line 7, right, at line 7, which is this line, right, at line 7, there's something wrong with it. So you can see that we have the red, there's something wrong over there, and it's pointing to where the mistake happened, right? It's pointing to where the mistake happened. So we missed something over here. We're adding two numbers, we brought our a, but we forgot to bring the b. Okay, we forgot to bring the B like we did over here. We forgot to bring the B. So in that case, it's saying that we have syntax error. Right, we have syntax error, and it's saying that it's an invalid syntax, right? It doesn't understand what we wrote over here. Okay, so this is syntax error. You write the code and then you end up writing it in a different way that Python don't understand, and it's going to get, you're going to get a syntax error out of that. All right, let's see a different example again over here. Right, let's see another example. So let's say we want to define a function to perform multiplication. So in that case, I define my function over here, and then I'm going to multiply two numbers. So I give two arguments over here. Okay, then I give it a name. I give the function name over here. So maybe mod, right? I just shorten multiplication to mod over here. All right, then I'm going to multiply the two numbers, right? I'm going to multiply the two numbers and then store it in a variable called results. Okay, store it in a variable called results. Now if I do that, I want to finally return the results. Okay, I want to finally return the results. All right, so let's run this one and see what happens. Okay, so now we have an error here. Let's see what happened. So it's telling us that at line 4, right, at line 4, which is this line, right, we have an error there. So you can see that the red squeaky line is over there. Okay, we have an error there, and it's pointing to where the error is. So there's something missing over here, right? So it's a syntax error. We wrote something that Python don't understand. It's a syntax error, and there's something where the thing is missing is pointing to it that, okay, there's something missing here, so you have to check it. All right, so let's see what is missing over there. So normally when you write, when you define a function, what you do is that you give a keyword, which is def, and then the function name, right? The function name, and then you bring this argument, whether you're going to give an argument or you can even write it without an argument, okay? And then what you do next is to bring this column. Okay, so that's what we missed. We did not bring the colon, and that is the problem. That's the reason why it is giving us an error over here. Okay, so now let's actually write this code again, right? Let me copy it and then bring it over here, right? Let me bring it over here. So normally what happens is that when you are defining a function in Python, what you do is that you bring the def keyword, right? You bring the def keyword, then you bring the function name, or you give a name to the function that you're defining, and then you bring whether you're going to give an argument or not. So you can even do it without giving an argument. Now the next thing that you have to do over here is to bring a colon, right? So that's what we missed, and that's why Python is saying that it doesn't understand what we wrote, and it's giving us syntax error. So you bring that one, you bring a colon over there. Okay, so this is the correct way to write a function. So what we wrote at first wasn't the correct way. We missed the colon, right? So that's why it's actually telling us that, okay, we have a syntax error and there's something missing there, and you can see that it's pointing to where we missed something, right? And that's the colon that we're supposed to bring. So now if we run this code, right, now if you run it again, now you see that everything works fine. Now I can now call my function. I can call this function and then pass in any two arguments. So let's say 6 and 10, right? Now if I do this one, it's going to multiply 6 with 10 and then give me 60. Okay, now I see that everything works fine over here. All right, now let's see how you properly read the errors, right? So if you see that if you write the code in a wrong way, you're going to get an error like this. Okay, so let's see how you're going to read this error. Okay, let's see how you're going to do that. All right, so what I'm doing over here is just the same thing that we did earlier on, right? This code is what I am bringing here, right? This code, the same code is what I am bringing. I am just screenshotting and then writing the individual parts for you to actually understand. Okay, so this is how a Python error looks like. Okay, this is how a Python error looks like, just like we saw it earlier on, just like we saw it over here. Okay, this is how the error looks like. So let's actually see the individual components of this error. Okay, so we have the first one over here, which I have indicated here as 1, right, which is the green one that you can see. So that is actually the file name, right, the file name where the invalid syntax was encountered. Okay, that's the file name. And then you're going to see this one. You're going to see this one, which I have indicated as blue, which is the 2 over here. And that is the line, right? The line number where the error occurred. Okay, that's the line number where the error occurred. So in this case, it's going to point to, if you see this one over here, it's pointing to say 4, right? At 4, there's an error there, right? At line 4, there's an error there. Okay, so that's the line number, and then it's going to actually point to exactly where that error is. Okay, that error happened, exactly where that error happened. So that is where you see the correct sign over there, right? That is on the line below the reproduce code, which shows the point in the code that has a problem. Okay, so it's going to point to exactly where the problem is. All right, and then this one is going to show you the exact problem or the exact error that you are running into. Right, so in this case, we run into a syntax error. Right? As we progress, we're going to see different types of errors. This one is a syntax error. We're going to see some name error, some key error, and other errors. Okay, so this is how a Python error looks like. So if you see this one, you don't have to freak out. You just have to read it and know what is happening over there so that you can easily fix it. Okay, you can know exactly what is wrong at where, and then which line and what particular error that you are facing. Okay, what particular error that you have run into, and then you can easily fix it. Okay, so as soon as you see the error, you don't have to freak out. You just have to figure it out. All right, so let's progress. All right, so let's progress to see some of the common syntax errors that you're going to encounter, so that when you encounter them, they will not be something new for you. You can easily debug them. Okay, you can easily fix them. All right, so there might be a time that you want to use this assignment operator, right? But it's possible that you use it wrongly. And when you use it wrongly, you're going to encounter a syntax error. All right, so let's see some examples of the wrong ways of using this assignment operator or misusing this assignment operator that will land you in an error, right? And how to fix that. All right, so let's say I have a string. Let's say I have a string like total, right? Total data. All right, total data science over here. I have this string over here. What I want to do is that I want to check the length of this. So I can use the length function. I can use the length function to check the length of this. So if I run this code, it's going to give me the length of this. All right, so now you see that we have 18 over here. So that is the length, the total length of this total data size. If you count all of them, you see that it will be 18. All right, let's say I do this. So let's say I do the length. I calculate the length of this, right? Then I want to maybe check if the length of this one is equal to 5. Right, maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to check the length of, I want to check if the length of this string is equivalent to 5 or is equal to 5. Okay, now if I run this one, let's see what happens. You see that we have an error over here. Okay, we have an error over here, and it's telling us that line 1, obviously it's just 1. So at line 1, there's an error there, and it's pointing to exactly where the error is. Okay, it's pointing to where the error is. So there's a mistake here. There's a problem with what we did over here, and the error here. And the message here is that it's saying that there's a syntax error, right? And the message is that we can't assign to function call, right? We can't assign to function call. So we are using the assignment operator wrongly over here, right? We want to check, what we wanted to do is that we want to check if the length of this one, right, is equal to 5, right? But that's not how to actually do it, right? That's not actually how to do it. What we can do is that we can do it this way. We can check the length to see if it's equivalent to something, right? If it's equivalent to 5, this is how we can actually do it, right? So we should use the double equal sign, not just the one equal sign. If you're using one equal sign, it's more like we are assigning 5 to the length of this, which is not possible in Python, right? But if we want to check if the length of this is equivalent to 5, then we should use double equal sign. So if I run this one, you see that it's giving me false because the length of this one is not equivalent to 5. Okay, so if I change this one to say 18, right, and then run it again, I'm supposed to get true, right, because the length of this one is equivalent to 18 as we checked earlier on. Okay, so if you use it wrongly, if you use operators, not only the equal to operator, I mean, maybe it could be greater than or equal to, or it could be any assignment operator. Okay, if you use it wrongly, you're going to encounter this kind of error. All right. All right, so there's a possibility that you're also going to misspell some keywords, or you'll be writing a code which is having some missing keyword or some missing variable or something like that, or you can even misuse the keywords. Right, you can write it in a different way that Python will not understand, and that is also going to give you an error. Right. So there are 3 common ways that you can actually misuse keywords, right? That is misspelling the keyword, or missing the keyword, or misusing the keyword. Okay, so let's actually see example of all these, right? Let's actually see example of all these possibilities to do, and then you're going to encounter an error. All right. So let's say I want to print a range of numbers, right? So I can do for I in range, say 5, right? For I in range 5, then I want to, for I in range 5, then I want to print all the I, right? So I'm going to print all the I in the range of 5, right? So that's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I mean, it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It will be, I mean, 1 less the last number, so it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So I want to print all those numbers, right? So I'm doing for I in range, for I in range 5, print all the numbers over there. So if we run this code, now we see that we have an error here. What happened? Let's see the error. What is saying that line 1, right? So in this case, we have this line 1 over here. There's an error there, and you can see the red squeaky line being given over here, and it's pointing to exactly where the problem is, right? So there's something wrong here, and then it's saying that it's a syntax error, right? It's an invalid syntax. Okay, now one thing that you have to note is that sometimes the pointer will be on the next item, meanwhile the problem is actually it's coming from the item right before that, right? So that's one thing you have to note. So the problem that's happened over here is that we wanted to use the keyword for, right? But we misspelled the keyword. We made it FRO instead of FOR. Okay, so that's the problem that we have over here. So let me actually do it the right way. Let me copy this code and then bring it here. Okay, bring it here. So now if I do the spelling right, and then I do for I in range 5, print all the I for me. Let's see what happens now. Now you see that everything, you see that it's printing 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So now it's working fine for us, right? So if you misspelled the keyword, you're going to get an error. Okay, you're going to get an error. All right, not only that, you can also miss the keyword. Not only misspelling it, but you can also miss the keyword. So let's see an example of that, right? Let's see an example of that. So let's say I want to create a list of colors, right? So I do say green, right? I do green over here. Then probably I do red, right? I do red. Then I do say brown, right? I do brown. I do say black. Then I do say blue, right? I do say blue. Then I do maybe I do white, right? I do white over here. Okay, so what I want to do is that I want to create a list of colors. Okay, so I'm going to give it a variable name colors over here. Now what I want to do next is that I want to check if there's red, right? If there's red in colors, okay, if there's red in colors, then what I want to do is that I want to print something. If we go through the list of colors and there's red there, then I want to print this statement, red is in colors. Okay, that's what I want to do. So let me run this code. Oops, we have an error there, right? Let's see the error that we have. So it's saying that's a line 2, right? So if we go here, we have line 2 here, and that's why we have the red squeaky line. There's something wrong. There's something wrong over here. Okay, there's something wrong over here, and it's pointing to this place. That's okay. There's something wrong over there. There's something wrong over there. So it's a syntax error, right? It's an invalid syntax. So let's see what went wrong. We are saying that we have a list called colors, right? And we want to check certain conditions. So if we find red, if we go through this list and we find red, then we want to print this statement, right? But if you see the condition that we gave, we're saying that if red, so we missed the keyword here, if red in, right? If red in colors, right? If red in colors, then print this one. So we missed the in, and that's why we are getting this error. Okay, so now let me copy this one and then come and write it well over here. Okay, so I'm going to do if red in colors. Now you see that we have our keyword. So if you see, the color is actually different. It's blue over here, right? The keywords, you can see them that they are actually different from the other letters that we wrote, right? So now if I run this one should work fine for me. Now see that it's printing red, is in colors. Okay, so as soon as you encounter the error, you don't have to freak out. You just have to read the error and then fix it. Okay. All right, so there's also a possibility that you'll misuse a keyword, right? There's a possibility that you're going to misuse a keyword. So let's say I have a string total data science, right? Let's say I have this string, and then what I want to do is that I want to check a letter. I want to check a letter in this. So what I want to do is that for letter in this total data science, right? If you go through this one, so this letter here is representing each of the letters in total data science. Okay, so it's representing T, it's representing O, it's representing T here, it's representing A, it's representing L, and all the others. Okay, that's what it's doing. So what I'm saying is that for each of the letters over here, right, if the letter is equivalent to say letter D, right, equivalent to say letter D, then what I want to do is that I want to print the letter out. Okay, I want to print the letter out, and then I want to stop running the program. Okay, then I want to stop running the program, so I bring a break statement over here. Okay, so I want you to go through this string, right? I want you to go through this string, and then as soon as you encounter the letter D, print all the letters that you have so far and stop running the program. That's what I'm doing over here. Okay. So let's run this one and see what happens. Oops, we have an error over here, right? So let's see this error and then see what happened. So you can see where the squeaky line is, where it has been on the line. That is the line 4, right? It's saying that line 4, there's a mistake over there, right? And it's pointing to where it is, where the error is happening, right? Which is this part. And it's saying that the break is outside the loop, right? You see there's a syntax error, and it's giving us a message here, right? That the break is outside the loop, right? This break is actually supposed to be inside here. Supposed to be inside this loop, but we brought it here. Unfortunately, we forgot that it's supposed to be inside here, but we brought it outside here. So that's a wrong syntax. That's not how we are supposed to write it. We're supposed to bring the break inside the loop and not outside the loop, and that's why it's giving us this syntax error and giving us a message that the break is outside the loop. Okay, so now you see how the errors are, and you see how to read it. So let me actually copy this code over here and then come and write it well for you to see. Right, so ideally this break is supposed to be inside this loop. Okay, this is how you're supposed to do it. All right, then this print will come here. Okay, so now let's run the code again and see what happens. Now see that it's printing total over here, because we are saying that for each of the letters, right? So go into this total data science and then check if you pick T, compare it with the letter that we have given here. So is T equivalent to D? No, then print it out, right? Check O, is O equivalent to D? No, then print it out. Okay, check T, is T equivalent to D? No, then print it out. Check A, is A equivalent to D? No, then print it out. Okay, check L, is L equivalent to D? No, then print it out. Okay, but when you check D is equivalent to D, right? So in that case our condition here is satisfied, right? The letter is now equivalent to D, so we're going to break the program, so it's going to stop running. All right, so that's why over here stop running and did not print anything after that. Okay, so that's what is happening. So earlier on we missed this one. We brought this break down here, which is not supposed to be the case. We brought it outside, so it was giving us break. It was outside the loop, so we're supposed to actually bring it here. Okay, so if you write your code in the wrong way, you're going to run into an error. So the only thing that you have to do is to read the error, see the particular error, where the error has happened, and then fix it. All right. It's possible we're also going to make some parentheses or some brackets or some quotes. Okay, and that is also going to give us errors. All right, so let's say I want to print all the items in a string, right? In a string, like say total, right? Total data science, right? We want to print all the strings in that, right? We want to print all the strings in that. Okay, so I can write my code like this and then run it. Oops, we have an error here. All right, so let's see what happens over here. So line 1, there's an error there, right? Now we got an error because we missed the code, right? We did not bring the code over here. So normally when you write a string, you're supposed to put it either in single quote, right? Either in single quote, or you can bring double quote, right? Either of them works fine. Or either in single quote or in double quote, either of them works fine. So let's run the code again. Now you see that it's working fine for me. Okay, you see that it's working fine. It's printing total data science. All right, so as soon as you encounter the error, you don't have to freak out. You just have to find out what is wrong and then fix it. Okay, so that's I mean, mixing the code. I mean, we mixed the code and then we got an error, right? Let's see a different way that we can run into an error. Okay, so let's say I want to do the same thing. I want to print all the items. So in this case, I'm very cautious. I'm bringing my code, right? So total data science, all right, total data science. Then over here, I'm going to print my I out, right? So I'm going to print the I. Okay, so let's run this one and see what happens. Now see that we have an error here, right? Because when I was doing the print, right, when I'm doing the print, let me do it this way. Because when I'm doing the print, I missed a parenthesis over here, so it's giving me an error, and it's saying that at line 2, right, which is this one, that is where we have the red squeaky line. Okay, there's something wrong there, and you can see where it's pointing to, right? There's something wrong with this, right? Then it's a syntax error, and you see the message over here saying that missing parenthesis in the call to print. Okay, and it's actually asking you, did you mean to print this one? See how effective Python is. It's actually even asking you what you wanted to write and then you made a mistake, so you can easily copy this one and then go and put it over here, right? You can even copy this one and go and put it over here, and it's going to work fine for you. Okay, in Python 2 this one would have worked, right? In Python 2 this one would have worked, but in Python 3 this one doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work in Python 3. In Python 3, you have to bring a parenthesis before it works. Okay, so let me even bring it here. Let me copy it and then bring it here for you to see, right? So if I now put the parenthesis around the I, right? If I put the parenthesis around the I and then run it again, now this time it's supposed to work fine for us. Right now you see that everything works fine. Okay, let's see one more example of this one. So let's say I want to create a list, right? I want to create a list of something. I'm going to show you how to create a list, right? I'm actually going to show you how to create a list. Okay, so let's say I want to create a list of something. So I do say cars. Okay, I do cars, then I do house. All right, then I do maybe family. Okay, I do family. I'm supposed to bring a bracket here. Okay, I do family, then I close my square bracket. So let me run this one. Oops, now we have an error over here, and if we see the error that we have, at line 1, right? So here we have only one single line over here, and then it's pointing to something wrong here, right? It's a syntax error. It's an invalid syntax. Okay, so we closed the bracket, but we did not actually open the bracket first before we close it. So that's the problem. That's the problem that we faced. Okay, so we can easily go back and then add the square bracket here. And we can easily do this, and then when we run this one, it's supposed to work fine for us. Now I see that we don't have the errors. Okay, so I mean that's another way of doing it, right? That's some of the errors that you're going to encounter, some common errors that you're going to encounter. Okay, now let's see this indentation error, right? This is one of the common things that you're going to encounter, indentation error. Okay, so let's say I want to like the example that we used earlier on. So for I in this string, right, the string of total data size, right? So I want to print all the items over here. So what I did over here is this, right? Then I say that I want to print all the I. Now you see what is happening. It's giving us an error here on line 2, right? Line 2, there's an error there, right? And it's pointing to the specific place that the error is, right? Which is this part. And it's saying that it's an indentation error. So this time it's not syntax error, but it's indentation error. Expected an indented block. Okay, so this is an indentation error, meaning that there was supposed to be an indentation over here. There was supposed to be a space over here, but there was no space over there. That's why it's giving us this kind of an error. All right, so normally when you write anything, whether it's a conditional statement or something like that, right, you're going to bring this colon over here. You're going to bring this colon. As soon as you bring this colon, the next line is supposed to start something like this, right? Where there's supposed to be a space, right? It's not supposed to start exactly as the first line. Okay, so in this case this print over here, right, it's supposed to start like this but not like this, right? So you can press the tab to give a space over there. Otherwise you can just go back to make sure that it is here, right? The next line is here, and then you press enter. It's going to go to the right position in the next line. Okay, so if you don't know whether you've given the right indentation or not, you just go here. Let's make sure that it is actually on the same line like this. Okay, then in between the colon and that next line statement, you press enter. Then it's going to go there, at the right place for you. Now if I run this one, you see that it's working fine. You see that it's working fine. So that is indentation error, right? There's supposed to be an indentation over here, a space over there. All right. Okay, so now we've talked about the syntax error. Right? We've talked about the syntax error here. We've talked about the syntax error. So the next one that we're going to talk about is the runtime error. Okay, we're going to talk about the runtime error. All right, so when we talk about the runtime error, we are talking about a situation where you write the code and the code follows the right syntax, right? Unlike the one that we were seeing earlier on, where we were writing the code but there was a wrong syntax. Okay, but you can write the code with the right syntax. However, during the execution of the program, you can still run into an error, right? And that is possible because of several reasons, right? So for instance, you can misspell or incorrectly capitalize variable, right? That is, you can use a variable that is not defined, right? You can use a variable that is not defined, right? Or attempt to perform some operations on wrong data types, right? And that one too is going to give you an error. Or when you try to divide a number by 0, you're going to get a runtime error, right? Or when you try to convert from one data type to another, which Python doesn't understand, you're also going to get an error. Okay, so in that case, you write your code, it follows the right syntax, but during the execution, there might be something wrong that Python really don't understand, and in that case too is going to give you an error. Okay, so let's see an example of them, right? Let's see an example of them. So for instance, if you use a variable or a function which is not defined, then you're going to get an error. Okay, you're going to run into an error. So let's see, for instance, if I have a variable a to be say 100, right? Let's say I want to perform some addition, right? So I have a variable a to be 100, I have a variable a b to be say 200. Okay, so now if I want to perform the addition, maybe I want to let me store the results in a variable called say answer. Okay, and then that's going to be a plus b plus z. Okay, a plus b plus z. Then I want to print out, right? I want to print out the answer. Okay, so this is what I want to do. Now let me run this one. Okay, now you see the problem that we have right now. It's telling us that, you see the error is a name error. Okay, it's a name error. There's a certain name here that Python don't understand, and you can see that this one is pointing to where the problem is. Okay, you see where the pointer is now. It's pointing to where the problem is, which is this part. Okay, that's where the problem is. And it's saying that the name z that we provided is not defined. Okay, if you see the rest of the variables, a, we said that a is equal to 100, b is equal to 200. Then when we came here, we used the a and then the b. So in this case, Python is going to give 100 over here, it's going to give 200 over here, right? But when it comes to z, Python doesn't know what to give over there because we did not define it. Okay, so it's saying that the z is not defined. Okay, so that's a name error. The name z is not defined, so that's a name error. So the syntax is right. This is how we're supposed to write our code. Everything works fine. The syntax is fine, but during the execution, Python did not get any value for this name. It did not understand this name, so it gave us a name error. Okay, so this is a runtime error. All right, so this is another error that you're going to encounter. Okay. So for instance, if I let me even copy this one. Let me copy this one and then bring it here. Right. Let me bring it over here. Now let's say I have my z. Let's say I give the z to be say 50. Right. Now if I run this one, now you see that we have 350 over there, right? We have 350 because now all the variables were defined and Python understand each of them, I mean the values to give for each of them over here. Okay, so all the variables here were defined up here. So now everything works fine. When Python is running this program, it knows the value to give for a, it knows the value to give for b, it knows the value to give for z. Okay, so now everything is working fine. So you have to just see the error, read the error and see what the problem is and then fix it. Okay, now let's say we want to divide something and then we attempt to divide it by 0, right? Let's see what happens. Okay, so what I'm going to do over here is that I'm going to create a variable a, right? And in that case, I'm going to let the users input this variable. So I'm going to say that enter first number. Okay, enter first number. Then I'm going to convert whatever the user enters into an integer. Okay, then I give b over here. Then I'm saying that let me copy the same thing and put it over here. So what I'm going to do over here is that I'm going to do enter second number. Okay, now after the user has entered the first and the second number, what I want to do is to divide these two numbers, right? So divide a by b, then store it in a variable called say answer. All right, that's going to give me the answer of a divided by b. Then I can now print out so the first number that the user let me do this. The first number that the user gave, right, that I'm going to say that that number divided by the second number, right, divided by the second number is, or maybe equals, right, let me do it that way. Okay, equals, then what I'm going to do is to give the answer, right? I'm going to provide the answer over here. I'm going to give this answer there. Okay, so whatever answer is going to be there is going to be provided over here. Okay, so now let's run this program over here, right? Now it's prompting us to enter the first number. So let's say the first number is say 100. Then it's going to prompt us to enter the second number. So let's say the second number is say 5. Right now it's giving us 100 divided by 5 equals 20. Okay, so it doesn't matter whatever number that we give is going to perform the division for us. So let's say we have 7, right? The first number is 7, the second number is say 4. Now if we do that, you see that 7 divided by 4 equals 1.75. Okay, now everything works fine. Everything works fine. Let's say the user enters something like this. Right? Let's say the user enters something like this. The first one is say 15, right? The first one is 15. The second number is say 0. Okay, now let's see what happens. You see that we have an error. Now we have an error over here, and the error that is going to and the error that we have over here is what? 0 division error. Okay, we have zero division error because we are trying to divide by zero, right? Division by zero. So in Python, we cannot divide by zero. Okay, so it's going to give us zero division error. So this is also a possible scenario that you might encounter as you progress, right? When you try to write a code where you try to divide certain number by zero, then you're going to get an error, right? In this case, we try to divide 15 by zero, and that's why we ended up getting a zero division error over here. Okay, so take note of this zero division error. All right, now one more thing that you have to note over here is that when you are using Google Colab, right, in this case we are using Google Colab, as you can see over here, right, we are using Google Colab. Okay, so one more thing that you have to take note is that when using Google Colab, it will be giving you this button, right? It will be giving you this button after every error. When you enter into any error, it's giving you this button over here, which is saying that you can search on Stack Overflow. Okay, you can search on Stack Overflow to see the kind of errors. Okay, so when I click on this, for instance, I had this error, maybe I don't understand, I don't know what to do, right? I don't know what to do. So what I can do is to just click on that. So if I click on this one, it's going to take me to Google where similar problems has been solved by some other people. So you can see that we have the same error here, right? Error, zero division error, so division by zero. So people have encountered this problem over and over again. You can easily click on any of them over here, right? You can easily click on any of them over here to go to the particular site, right, the particular Stack Overflow site, and then you can see how they have solved it, right? You can see how. So for instance, if I click on this one, if I click on this first one over here, it's going to take me to Stack Overflow, and you can see that someone has encountered the same problem, zero division error, division by zero. Okay, someone has encountered the same problem, and there has been suggestions of what to do. Okay, so you can actually come here and then you see how to do it, and then how the person, some people suggested him to solve the problem, right? And then you can go back and then do the same thing, right? You can go back and use the same technique to fix the same issue. Okay, so mostly that's what you do, and even Google understand that you don't actually code by yourself. You have to look for resources, and that's why they have provided these buttons. As soon as you enter into an error, there's a button here that you can easily click on it and then search for some of the problems. If you search and you're not getting it, you can just copy the whole code, right? The whole error over here. You can copy the whole error and then enter it in Google, right? So if I copy this one, if I go to Google here and then I paste it over there and press enter, so you see that there's going to be a lot of solutions over here, right? All people have already entered into it, and people have already entered into this kind of errors. Any error that you're going to encounter as a Python developer has already been encountered by other people, right? And there are solutions already there on the internet that you can find out. Okay, so this is how some of the ways that you can easily fix this kind of issues. Okay, so you can easily click on that button and then you get it. All right. Okay, so now another way that you can run into an error is when you use the various operators in the wrong way, right? Or when you use them on the wrong data type, right? You're going to actually run into an error. So for instance, if I want to add two numbers, so I do m equals say 100. Okay, m equals say 100. Then I do n equals 1,500. Okay, now what I want to do is that I want to add these two numbers, which is m plus n. Okay, then I want to print the answer, which is c over here. I want to print the c. Okay, so let's run this one and see what happens. Oh, we have an error over here, right? So what is it saying? Let's see the error that is happening over here. So it's pointing to this. It's pointing to this one here, that there's an error over there, and it's saying that it's a type error, right? It's a type error. So Python is having different data types, right? It has an integer, it has a string, it has a float, right? So you have to make sure that you are using the wrong type, right? The wrong data type. So it's saying that if you see the error message, unsupported operand type or types, right? For the plus, so the plus that you're trying to use, right? It's not supporting the type of the operand that you're given, right? So you have int and then string. You are trying to add an integer and a string. So if you see the numbers that we have m equals this, m equals 100. That is an integer. But if we see the n equals this one, 1500 in the quote, that makes it a string. Although we are seeing numbers as 1500, but once we put it in the quote here, it becomes a string. Okay, and it cannot add integer to a string, right? It cannot add these two. You cannot add an integer to a string. So that's what it's trying to tell us, that you cannot add integer and a string. It has to be two integers, right? Whether integer and an integer, or integer and a float, or float and a float. But you cannot add integer to a string, or integer to a float to a string. You cannot do that. Okay, so that's the error that it's giving you. So if let me even copy the code over here. So if for instance, if we have this one, let me take this one off. Right, let me take this one off. Let's say it's looking like this, right? 100 and then the n equals 1000, 500. Okay, let's see this one too. Now we have another error over here. Right, we have another error over here. So what is happening here is that we have an integer here, right? We have an integer here, and then this one also looks like an integer, but we have a comma here. So this comma will give us a trouble if you want to add, right? This comma will give us a trouble. So what we have to do is to take off this comma, right? So it's giving us that the type it's giving us a type error over here, right? And it's saying that it's unsupported operand type or types for the plus they are using. It cannot add int and then a tuple. So Python is actually treating this over here as a tuple. It's treating this one over here as a tuple. Okay, if you don't know what tuple is, you can watch the Python data types session, right? In this course, you can check the Python data types in this course, and you know what tuple is, what an integer is, what a float is, what a string is. Okay, so you cannot add these two. You cannot add these two. You can add an integer to a float, right? An integer to a float, or an integer to an integer, or a float to a float, but you cannot add an integer to a string, right? An integer to a string like we saw earlier on, right? Or maybe a float to a string. You cannot do that, all right? So the right way to do this is this, right? We can actually do this one. So this one becomes an integer and an integer. So if we print this one out, now you see that this one works fine. It's giving us 1600. Okay, you see that this one is working very fine for us. All right, let's actually see another example. So let's say I want the user to enter some quantity of an item, then I'll give them a discount. Okay, so I'm going to create a variable called, say, quantity. Right, a variable called quantity. Then I'm going to allow the users to put their own quantity over here. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do enter a quantity, or enter quantity, right? Let me make it simple. This is what I'm going to do. Then what I'm going to do over here is that I'm going to do discount, right? I'm going to give them a discount of, say, 80%, right? So I can write it as 0.80. Okay, then I multiply this one by the quantity that they are going to provide, which is this quantity. Okay, which is going to be this quantity. So this is the quantity that I'm bringing over here. So whatever item that they enter, I'm going to multiply it by 80%. I'm going to give them a discount of 80%. Then finally, I'm going to print it out, right? I'm going to say that the discount on the quantity that they have entered, right? Discount on the quantity that they have entered, right? Maybe on that particular item, the number of items is going to be this. It's going to be the discount. Okay. All right, so that's basically what is going to happen over here. Now let's actually run this one and see what happens. Okay, so it's now prompting us of the quantity. It's now prompting us of the quantity. So let's see what we can enter here. Let's say I want 20, right? I want 20 pieces. Okay, so if I press enter over here, now we have an error. Let's see what happened over here. We have an error. So the error is pointing to this part of the code, right? It's pointing to this part of the code, which is this part, right, where it has been underlined, which is this part. And then it's saying that if you see the error, the type of the error is a type error, Okay, it's a type error, and it's saying that it can't multiply sequence by non-int of type float. Okay, now what is happening here is that we have a float here, right, which is 0.80. We are multiplying it by the quantity that the user entered. Now, if the user entered this 20, it's going to be seen as a string, right? That's by default, it's going to be as a string. So if you don't want it to be a string, what you can do is that whatever the user enters, right, you can convert it to an integer, right? You can convert it to an integer, or you can convert it to a float, okay, so that you'll be able to run it properly. So now if I enter 20, now the 20 is going to be seen as an integer instead of being seen as a string, right? So if I press enter over here, now you see that's working fine, and it's saying that discount on 20 items is 16.0. okay, so that's I mean, some of the ways that you need to work your way around these things. Okay, so it's possible you write the code at first, then you run into an error, then you read the error, then you go back to fix it. Okay, all right, so now we've seen the syntax error, we've seen the runtime error, right? So let's see what is called as logical errors. Okay, let's see what is referred to as logical errors. Now, when we talk about logical errors in Python, these are errors that will not actually give you any it will not actually throw any errors like we saw earlier on. When you run into an error, it's going to give you this error message. But when you have a logical error, it's not going to throw this kind of a message. It's not going to show you that there's an error happening somewhere, right? The program will run very fine. However, it's not going to do what you want it to do. Okay, it's not going to do what you want it to do. It's going to do something else different from the results that you're expecting, right? But it's not going to throw an error. It's not going to show you that, okay, there's an error happening somewhere in your code. The code runs very fine, but the logic in the code is wrong, and it's going to actually give you a wrong output. Okay, so that is a logical error. Let's see an example of this logical error. All right, so let's say I want to check the price of something, right? Let's say I want to buy something online, and then I want to check if the price of the item is less than my budget, then I can buy it, right? But if the price of the item is greater than my budget, then I'm going to say that it's too costly for me, I cannot buy it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to allow the user to enter their price, right? To enter the price of the item, right? So I'm going to do enter price of item, right? Enter price of item. Now remember that I told you that if the user enter a value here, it's going to be seen as a string. Okay, so in order to cater for this, I'm going to convert whatever the user enters to a float. Okay, so now what I'm going to check is if the price is above my budget or below my budget. Okay, so if it's below my budget, then I can buy, right? If the price is below my budget, then that is if the price is below my budget. So let's say my budget is $200. Okay, but if the price is not below my budget, then I'm going to print this is too costly. All right, this is too costly for me. Okay, then otherwise if the price is below my budget, then I can rather print out this is okay for me, right? I can buy it. Okay, so if the price is below $200, then I can buy it. Otherwise, if the price is above $200, then I cannot buy it. So let's run this one and see. Okay, now it's prompting us to enter the price of the item. So let's say the price of the item is say $400. Okay, now if we do that, now it's saying that it's telling us that this is okay for me, I can buy it. But ideally, $400 is above my budget, I cannot buy it. So let's see what went wrong. Now we are not getting any errors here, but we are not getting the desired output, right? What I want to do is that if the price is greater than if the price is greater than $200, then I want to print this is too costly for me, I cannot buy it. Okay, however, if the price is less than $200, which is my budget, then I can print this is okay for me, I can buy it. But when we executed this code, we are not getting any errors, but we are not getting the desired output. right? We got a price of $400 and still it's saying that this is okay for me, I can buy it. Right, so what went wrong? If you see the logic that we built over here, we are saying that if price is less than 200, then execute this. Okay, if price is less than 200, then execute this. However, if the price is greater than 200, right, that is if the first condition is not satisfied, if the price is not less than 200, right, and if the price is not less than 200, then the price is greater than 200. Okay, then if the price is greater than 200, then execute this. So that's why it is executing the second one, right? But we were supposed to actually do it this way. We were supposed to use greater than sign instead of the less than sign. We're supposed to rather use the greater than sign over here, right? So that it will be like, if the price is greater than 200, right, then print this statement: this is too costly for me, right? Otherwise, if the price is less than 200, then print this part. Okay, so this is the logic that we made. This is what we're supposed to have written earlier on. So instead of the equal sign, we brought less than sign, so that we missed the logic in the code, and that's why we're having a wrong in output instead of the desired output. So now let's run it again and see. Okay, now if we put 400 here, which is above our budget, right, and we press enter, now you see that this is too costly for me. Okay, now I see that now the logic is built well and it's giving us the right output. Okay, let's give a price which is less than $200 and see. Right, so let's say $100. Okay, and then press enter. Now I see that this is okay for me, I can buy it. Right, now the logic is fine, right? The logic is built well. So this is logical errors. Okay, this is kind of error that you have. You will not be having errors like this one that I threw out for you, but you're not going to get the desired output that you want. Okay, so you have to take note of that, right? You have to take note of that. Now there are some other errors that you might enter into it, right? So let's actually consider these errors. So we have what is called the index error, right? So let's say I want to create a list. Right, let's say I want to create a list of let's say I want to create a list over here, so I can give it, say, 1 2 3 4 5 or something like that. Okay, let me even name it as L1. Okay, let me name it as L1. Then let's say I want to get something out of this list, so I can index whatever is inside, right? So if I do L1 at say 3, right, L1 at 3, let me do that and run this code. Now you see that it's working fine for us, right? So what happens here is that Python actually gives an index, right? Python actually gives an index, and it's going to start here. It's going to index this one as 0. It's going to index this one as 1. It's going to index this one as 2. This one here as 3, and then this one as 4. This is how the indexing is done. Okay, so if I want an item at index 3, which is this one, right? So index 3 is this. Okay, at index 3 we have 4 there. Okay, and that's why you're seeing 4 over here. Okay, now if I want say an item at index let's say an item at index 4, let me run that. You see that is 5. Okay, however, since we have 0 and then 1 and then we have 2, we have 3, then we have 4. Okay, now if I want to get an item at index 5, right, an item at index 5, we don't have index 5 here. Okay, we don't have an index 5 here, so that is actually going to give us an index error. If we try to access an item at index which is not available in the list of items that we have, it's going to give us an error. So let's do that and see. Now you see what we have. See that we have an error over here, and it's telling us that there's an error here. We see that it's pointing over there, and it's an index error. You see that we have an index error over here. List index is out of range. Okay, you're going out of the range of the list that you have. Okay, so this is another error that you might encounter, right? We also have what is called model not found error. Okay, model not found error. So normally you can import any model, so you can just say import numpy. Okay, import numpy, and this one should work very fine. You see that no errors happens, right? However, if I want to import something which is not existing in Python, maybe I want to import something like this, anything else, right? And then if I run this one, you see that I'm going to have an error over here, right? I'm going to have an error over here, model not found error. Okay, I'm going to enter into this model not found error, and it's going to say that no model named whatever you entered. Okay, no model name like that. So if you try to import some models which are not present in Python, it's going to give you this kind of an error. Okay, it's going to give you this kind of an error. So what you have to do is that sometimes it's not that the model is not present in Python, but it's because you have not installed it. Okay, it's because you have not installed it. So what you can do is if you see the message that is giving you over here, that if your import is failing due to missing package, you can manually install, right, the dependencies using the pip. Okay, so if this one was a real package that I know that is there, right, what I can do is that I can easily do this. Okay, I can easily do pip install, then the model name. Okay, then I run it to install it first before I will come and then import it. Okay, before I will import it. So these are some of the errors that you're going to encounter and how to fix it. Okay, and then we also have what is called the key error. Okay, so let me show you that one as well. Let's say we have a dictionary, right? We have a dictionary of records. Okay, so let's say name of a person, right? Name of a person. So we have the name of a person, and the name is Sandra. Let's do that. And then we have the age of the person, right? Let's say the age of the person is this. Let's say the person is 25 years. All right, and then we have say gender. Okay, let's say the gender of the person is female. All right, so this is what we have. So I'm going to store this dictionary in a variable called records. Okay, now if you see this one here, what is now this is a dictionary that we have, right? So we have a key, then we have a value. Right, we have a key, we have a value, we have a key, and then we have a value. Okay, so in dictionary we have what is called key value pair. Okay, so you have a key, you have a value, you have a key, you have value, right? You have a key, you have value. Okay, now if I want to access the name of the person here, right? If I want to access the name of the person, I can use the key to access the name of the person. Okay, so let me do that. Let's say I do records. If I go into my records, right, I can use the key, say name, right? I can check the name of the person. So if I run this one, now I see that it's giving me the name to be Sandra. Okay, if I check, say, the age, right? If I check the age, now I see that it's giving me the age of the person, right? If I check, say, the gender, now I see it's giving me the gender of the person, right? However, let's say I want to check the country. Right, let's say I write to check the country. Now I see that we have an error over there, right? We have an error over there, and it's saying that we have a key error. We have a key error, right? And it's giving us the particular key that the error is coming from, right? So it doesn't see any country in the keys that we have, right? So we have the key name, we have the key age, we have the key gender, right? But it's not seeing the key country over there, so it's going to give us a key error, right? And it's going to point to where that error is coming from. All right, so what you have to do is that you have to just go and check, is there any key like that? If there's there's no key like that, then you don't have to search for such key, or otherwise you can just create it. You can just add that key if you want to. Okay, so that's another error that you might run into. The next one that you can run into is what is referred to as the import error. Okay, the import error. So sometimes you can import certain package, right? So for instance, if I import, say, pandas, right, and then if I run this one, you see that it works fine. Okay, so there are a lot of packages in pandas that I can also import. Okay, so I can do maybe from pandas import, say read underscore CSV, right? So if I want to read a CSV file, I can import this read underscore CSV package from pandas and then use it to read my CSV file. Okay, so if I run this one, See that everything works fine. We don't have any error. However, if I try to import something which is not present in pandas, so if I say from pandas import mean, right? Mean is present in NumPy, not in pandas. So if I do from pandas import mean and I run this one, let's see what happens. Now you see that we have an error. You have an error, and the error is saying that it's an import error. Okay, we have an import error over here, and it's saying that we cannot import any mean. Okay, meaning that mean is not present in pandas, right? It's also a possible situation that the mean is present in pandas, but you have to first install it using the pip install. Okay, you have to first install that before you can use it. It's also another possibility. So you can also try using the pip install if you really know that it's actually present in pandas. But in this case, mean is present in NumPy, not in pandas. So it's going to give you this kind of an error. Okay. All right. So that is import error. You can also run into what is called value error. Okay, value error. So let's see an example of this value error. So let's say I have a string. Let's say I have a string total data science over here. Right now, let's try and then convert this string to an integer. Okay, let's say I want to convert the string to an integer and then run it and see what happens. Now you see that we have an error here, right? We have an error here, and let's go through the error and see. We have a value error, right? We have a value error here, and it's saying that invalid literal for int with base 10, right? Total data science. So what is saying that Python is having different literals or different data types, right? We have int, we have string, we have float, and all that. Okay, so what is saying that we cannot convert, right? We cannot convert the string to an integer, right? Invalid literal for int. We cannot convert the string here to an integer. Okay, so that's one thing that you might run into, that you need to get used to it. You need to get familiarity with that. Okay, make sure that you're not converting a string to an integer. Okay.